A big welcome to How Do Men, a podcast with the ambition of building conversation, co-learning, and co-creation in order to find solutions, tools, and concrete tips for the modern man. Today I'm here with a friend and an amazing individual, namely Magnus Fridh. Magnus started meditating in his teens and immersed himself in the subject through Tibetan Buddhism and university studies in Indology. Based in Stockholm, Sweden, he teaches groups in yoga, mindfulness, and meditation, and is also one of the founders of the Mindfulness App. His latest book, The Art of Stillness in a Noisy World, Hardie Grant, is a book about how to find peace, tranquility, and peace in everyday life, and is up till today translated into 7 different languages. Magnus, a big welcome.
Thank you very much for having me here. Thank you.
Thank you. And I told you once you stepped in, you have this wonderful, energetic aura or energetic vibe around you, which just brings at least me down. I came into this from just like quite an intense phone call, and I felt like, wow, I don't feel like going into this like sort of podcast chat. And I started working with different ways of calming myself down. But the moment you came in, I immediately felt a sense of, sense of peace. So thank you for just bringing that with you. And we're going to get started right away with the question that usually or always starts our episodes, which is, what does being a man mean to you?
Oh, such a big question. So when you read all those achievements in the beginning here, and I just listened, I thought, oh, what a man. So that really sounds something. But I think when I hear that, I can also feel a bit distanced to that, because I think for me, I am all that. I am a man who achieved that, but I'm also that 15-year-old guy that almost in his ADHD fog got totally lost in his mind. And I'm also the guy who kind of found his way back. And I'm also a man who struggle with very ordinary things in life, like being a family man. And I'm also a man who struggled with some extraordinary things, like being a father of, especially one of my child who have been really struggling in her life because of a rare condition. So I think that is a vague but still an answer, that it's like a tenet that we have to relate to. And I think we have to embrace that tenet. And from a Buddhist point of view, it should be I feel it's very, it doesn't come naturally for me to get stick to one of those pictures, or because they are all, how to say, just subjective in the mind. So when I think about, when I hear that question, what first comes to mind is that I'm a human being, and what happened to me lately is that I'm surrounded by women, and I haven't thought about that so much actually. But I'm a yoga teacher as well, and the yoga world is nowadays dominance by women. That was a bit different when I started with Buddhism many decades ago, but now that situation. I'm also in a family constellation where I have 2 daughters and my wife and a female cat. So I'm again surrounded by female. So what I've been thinking about there is that I feel very good in that environment. So I think for my manhood I think it's very bit mixed by both female qualities and male qualities. I think that is how I am. and I have quite close to my emotions, and I'm quite easy to express my emotions and show vulnerability. So I don't know if it's an answer, but that looks like where I am at this moment. But I think it's very important to remember when we ourselves express who we are, don't get too fixated by that picture, because if you ask my daughters, they will probably come up with a different story.
Thank you for that answer. So I'd like to just reflect back a bit about what I heard to make sure that I got you right here.
Yeah.
And what you're starting with, really tapping into here, is or suggesting is that you as a man are many things.
Yes.
You are the plethora and the mystery of life that is being a human being. You're a father. You're an achiever. You're a man who is connected to your feminine side, your emotions, your vulnerability, and ultimately, deep down, before you're a man, you're a human being.
Yeah. Yes.
A human being first, then a man, and within the range of a man, there's 4 billion ways of being a man. All men out there today make up what it is to be a man. And then within that, I hear that you also surround yourself, and that's something I'd love to tap into a bit more and talk a bit more about, which is you're being surrounded with a lot of women. And especially, I mean, your family constellation, it makes me also, I'm also going into my first family constellation besides my woman and my partner's wife, Sophie, and we are having a daughter. So I'm entering
beautiful.
that dynamic. And we also have several plants at home, which many of them, not all of them, but many of them have been attributed like female characteristics, but not all of them. We have a few male ones as well. But in this space of, I have two questions. I mean, first, in the space of yoga, you mentioned that it's dominated by women, and that is also something that we have seen in general when it comes to personal development. I mean, looking at it from a purely, I would say, business perspective or like a market perspective, the world of the customer is in 70% of the times a woman in all personal development.
I would say even more than 70%.
Exactly. I mean, exactly. And that is personal development on a larger scope, including career development, different types of like managerial development you can do within the range of your work situation. For instance, if you narrow it down to self-improvement, it's higher, even higher. So our suggestion, and also one of the reasons why we created Sculpt, and I know that you also, I mean, 2 years ago, we met at a men's retreat, and that you were hosting. Our suggestion is that there's this idea that men are just not interested in personal development. And just because of conditioning, societal expectations, men have not been taught in the same way to introspect, work with vulnerability, and really working with themselves. Yet we want to also provide a second option or second alternative to that, why this imbalance is, which is that most of the places that you can go as a man today has been created either by women, for women, or both.
Yeah.
And that all, and I'm sure that you've noticed that as well, the language in many of these places is quite foreign to many men. Acceptance, love, surrender, openness, beautiful words, beautiful qualities, possibly shifted or weighted more into someone who has a feminine essence.
Yeah.
What comes up when I talk about this?
I think you're totally right, and thank you for clarifying my first statement. And I think it's kind of things evolves how it should evolve, so to speak, because it's kind of very, how to say, necessary that it had, when yoga meets the Western world, we are much into being equal, men and women. But if you look at the yoga world in India, it's invented for men.
Mm.
Absolutely, in a quite not always very nice way as well, but it was a very sometimes closed system for men to practice, have the privilege to practice those different kind of yoga traditions. And if you look at Ashtanga yoga, for example, it was actually they think it was invented for young boys, gymnastic young boys. And now this is something that meets the Western world, is more practiced by women. And I know also in Buddhist world, there have been a lot of discussion that's still today, there are many discussion about some, how to say, degrees of, how do you say, philosophical achievements in the monastic world. It's only available for men. So I think this is still a big topic because there are so many great scholars that are women. So I think it's a great counterweight to that we embrace it in a different way, so to speak. In terms of creating space for men, I think it comes down to very quite naive things in a way, because when we look at breath work and we look at meditation solely, men are coming. They have no resistance coming. But when we start working our bodies and move our bodies, either they don't want to come because they think it's female movements, I don't know, and they can't use their explosivity, or either they feel embraced to not be the best in the room, I think, in a simple forward fold. So, but I don't have any values in that, because I have also my situations where I feel, how to say, small and not how to say, open-minded. So, but I think that is a situation. But so coming to that, I think is very good to create those closed spaces for men only, like we did on that retreat that you were participated in. And but when we cross that line, when we came over that this is nothing to do with flexibility or anything like that, then I think we work with exactly the same things, like we're working with in yoga with women, to explore the inner world, to explore the mind, explore the potential of mind, to explore vulnerability, and to be fragile, and all those emotional issues that we call grantis in yoga, that are like obstacle or knots in your system. So I think there is not a big difference in that case. But I think it's fun with breath work, because breath work, it's in yoga we call it pranayama,
Yeah.
and it's like closely connected with a physical practice. Actually, you can't divide them. It's not possible. You can't say, I don't do the pranayama, I only do the yoga postures.
Exactly.
It's kind of weird. It won't do any benefits. But when we open up that, we change the name. I don't know exactly who invented that name, but a few years ago, it came up like a new movement. It's called breathwork.
Yeah.
So it's basically, you don't do any yoga movements, maybe a few just to open up the diaphragm and intercostal muscles. But so you lay down or you sit up and you just breathe and you regulate the nervous system. in any way that's possible. And then all the men came again, and you can see again that many instructors are men.
Yeah.
And I think that's great, but it says something about the climate, that the yoga is kind of claimed by those more female powers. But I think that is perfectly fine with me.
It is, yeah. I like that you're bringing that up with breathwork, and because I do coach breathwork myself, so I notice and I see that there's a lot of men who like it. One suggestion to why that is also is because I think in a Western society, we are quite hooked to effects.
Yes,
Fast effect.
That's true. Yeah, I forgot about that.
I mean, I've been doing, so my wife does yoga. I've been doing a lot of yoga as well. Not a lot. That's a lie, actually. But but I have practiced yoga throughout my life, and I, especially since I see that it's a longer, it's more of low effect, long-term beneficial sort of experience,
yoga,
at least to me, that is. Whereas if I go in and if you give me 45 minutes, I will be able to get you to a place inside of yourself that is so explosive that you've never experienced before.
Right.
Altered states of consciousness, and ideally even so much to a hyperventilative state where you, for a moment, disappear from reality and come back. And that is, in this world that we live in, something that is sought after. I think we're hooked on those, and that's why I believe breathwork is also becoming so popular.
Yes,
and many have come to me and said, because usually in breathwork, after your actual active breathing, there's always a landing phase, and people come to me and say, "Wow, I was able to meditate without actually thinking."
Yeah,
unless it's breathwork is like post meditation breathwork is like meditation on steroids. We say, because and I believe a lot of people have a difficulty today, possibly because of the imbalance of the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system, that they find just sitting down, it's too difficult these days. Just sit yourself down, find the stillness. For many takes, it's the starting strip to even get you to a place where it can begin calm yourself down can be 20 minutes at least.
That's right.
And for many, that's just a long time. Yeah.
I totally agree. Actually, a few years back, I started with a new technique when I teach meditation that I use breathwork or pranayama, and I call it pre-meditation instead. But just because of this, I could see that many people, they're struggling too much. And to meditate with an overactive nervous system is almost impossible, I would say. It's such a fight. So just to regulate down regulate is always the case, I would say. Sometimes you can use upregulated when you meet a group that are a bit drowsy or sleepy. You can do Kapalabhati or something like that. But most of the time it's about down regulation in this modern world we are living. So I think you're absolutely right. For me, it's like a combination. It goes together, that the everything make the effect even larger. And when you combine the yoga asanas, I call it asanas, the physical postures, and the breath, and the mindfulness. Those three, it's like a tripod together that supports this inner development. And what I can see is that when you combine those and when you practice it for a long time, it becomes more not only effects when you're doing it, that they will also remain in your system. So you can feel slowly, day by day, that something is changing within you, and there will be new. It will be like rewired somehow, and that's very interesting. I can think about that myself when you introduced me like a very calm person, and that you felt calm when I came here. And actually, I wasn't born like that. I have ADHD, and I was very much here and there, and rarely in the present moment. And I had very weak contact with my body. I felt I was all the time up in my fast-paced mind. So I would say, of course, age probably is doing something as well, but I'm quite sure that meditation changed that in me. And now it's more like I can feel that fast-paced, restlessness that I struggled with is like more like boiling water now, but it's not taking over. It's still there somehow. I can feel it now in my chest, but it's not taking over. Something new has been uncovered and developed. And from my point of view, that are faculties that I already had from the beginning, but they were I was deluded by this other stuff and couldn't find it myself. So that I find very interesting, and I totally I can totally understand that some people, they want to get how to say, cured in the moment from the stress or something like that, and also increase their performance, and breathwork is known for helping with that. I think it's totally fine, and I think it's a way in, but I think it's also a responsibility for me and other people who practice for a long time to tell them about that they're only scratching the surface. That is very important, I think, because those practices are much more than just lower or regulate the nervous system for 10-15 minutes, something like that. It wasn't invented for those reasons. It was invented to increase genuine happiness and decrease suffering, and over time totally cut off the roots of suffering, so you could really live a richer life and embrace the circumstances given to you with deep acceptance. So that is another story of what those practices are doing.
Thank you for bringing that in. And also, what moved me a lot was just when you said it's really scratching the surface, and we get hooked on, the and get like, oh wow, that was so cool. Where was I? And ultimately,
yeah,
it's
a game of carbon dioxide,
fun and games, right?
That's
and it's like fireworks.
Yes.
Yet, there is definitely a deeper layer.
But those experiences, I don't want to diminish them, because they can catalyze your interest to dive deeper. And I think we need those triggers to really to feel enthusiastic about going deeper. But if it's just boring, why should we do it? It's against how we work in life.
I agree, and that's where I at the moment place the westernized breathwork.
Yeah,
where it's like a Trojan horse.
Yeah.
Where because it sounds cool, and it's like, wow, you get all these cool effects, and it's like workout. You can frame it in a way, and Navy SEALs use it. It's like very, sounds quite hyped up and a bit commercial.
You can swim in cold water.
Oh yeah,
you
yeah,
die.
cough and all of these things, and you know, and that is then enough for many, basically everybody, to go in and say, well, let's try it. You know, I got to try what that is. What's the hype about? And the beautiful thing is that all you need is one session, if you have a good breathwork guide that knows how to, especially with music, to get them hooked. Because I see so many times over, especially since I coach companies, often like managerial teams or like entire companies, and people come to me like scratching their head afterwards, and it's like, usually they don't share it in the checkout sharing when you're supposed to share your insights with everybody, but then they come afterwards and like, look, I saw visions of different geometrical mathematical models. What was that? And I say, that's something for you to explore.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's like, and you see how their entire being have just like, what was that? And it's, I think that term is called mystique experience. It's actually a real thing, real for whatever that is, but it's a mystique experience, or mystic experience. And it's an experience that will be forever something implanted into you that makes you understand that there's more to life than the thing that we see in this three-dimensional world. And
that's really something to explore. Yeah,
exactly. And having one of those will alter your life forever.
Yeah.
And many people that have gone into personal development, especially those that are hooked on it, have had one or two or three at least of these experiences. And many have had them when they're younger, earlier. They felt the need to understand more about that. So
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I also was so impressed when I went to my first breathwork class here in Stockholm, how to combine the music with the guiding, because that's really a skill to make those playlists. And it was music I never heard before, but it was still quite common music. It wasn't any weird music like Osho dynamic or chakra breathing. It wasn't like that. It was much more common music. But still, the power of music is so strong. So sometimes I feel this teacher already done half the work, and he can just sit in silence and let the music do the work. Because for me, at least, there is, in terms of art forms, there is nothing that can change my mind like music. I went to Moderna Museet the other day, and I watched those wonderful, beautiful paintings from all throughout time. But for me, I really thought about it. It is beautiful and it's wonderful and it's nice to be there, but not much more happened in me, at least. But the other day I played, what song was it? It was a song with the Killers, I think, When You Were Young, I think. And I played that a lot when my daughter was newborn. I carried her and I sang that song a lot. And I mean, 1 second when the guitar in the beginning, and I was there. It's such a, it changes so quickly, so rapidly, and it takes you somewhere else, which is wonderful with music. So I think breathwork really find a great combination there to work with both those emotional things that music can change, and with regulating the nervous system.
Well, that is.
I don't know. How are you working a lot with music when you?
A lot.
Yeah. So you spend time creating playlists and.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time on that, and actually, I've always, at least from my experience, thought of myself as someone. I can see that I could have. I'm always good at. when I was younger, during any time of party, I was always good at choosing music, like selecting. And I understand it's almost like I can feel, I've always been able or capable of feeling a group of people and on knowing which song to play in a right.
No, that's a skill.
Yeah, it is some form of skill. And I always said, I see I probably could have gone down the routes together with at least Avicii, Alesso, and that when the Swedish house journey began like 10 or 15 years ago, I always felt that I could probably do that, just because I've had that feeling, ability to know.
You follow the energy, how people move, and when they go down too much, and you have to take them up. Yeah,
exactly that.
Exactly.
And now I use that in my breathwork sessions a lot, and I have basically I have my list split up based on archetypes and feelings. Also have all different songs, different playlists connected to where you use movie music, different like epic movie music, because movies in itself usually holds emotional fragrances in people, because people have them and they have. So
give me an example.
There are so many. I mean, the other day I played the song from Titanic.
Oh yes,
where it's the that one, and
everyone can relate to that.
Exactly. Yeah. And I played it in one of the breath holds, or I think it was even in the landing phase afterward, and I see like a 50% are crying. They get emotional releases because they have a connection to that movie, and I know that because everybody has a connection to that movie. In the same way, you can play a song where connected to bravery or different types of movies. There's a beautiful remix of the Star Wars, which is not the not that one, but it's like rebuilt in a way that it's made super epic. And that as well is something you can play, especially for a lot of men, because you make them tap into their inner hero.
Yes.
Their inner Luke Skywalker.
Like Highlander music.
That's the thing. That's the thing. So I don't overuse it, but I, in the same way, I can play, I have sensual music or playful music. And usually I go into the group, and I can try and sense what they need. And I listen to them also in their check-ins, where are they at? Because usually they, in the check-in before breathwork, you'll say like super stressed, feeling the need to ground myself. And usually it tends to be often most of the people have the same feeling coming into it. Sometimes, and then I know, if people want to ground and people want to relax and heal, then probably these like enormous epic journeys is not my go-to, but rather play with the typical more still, so all these things as well. It's a dance with the group intelligence.
Yeah, it's such a tool.
Yeah.
Especially for people that are a bit closed down.
Yeah.
Maybe men. And I think music is a quicker opener, I think, than your words probably. But if you combine those two, it's a winner.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
Well, do you ever play intentionally with music in yoga when you teach, or
yes, I do. I use I'm really I've been for some time, but I search for music in different BPM, beat per minute, the tempo, and so I'm looking very much for music that is a very low tempo, or of course you can half also, but around 45 to 50 BPM or like 9500, and you half it. Because that will make, if you breathe in the 4/4 with the guidance to the 4/4, it will be something like 5-6 breaths per minute. And if you go to the research, if you do resonant breathing or coherent breathing, it's said that it's somewhere 5.5 seconds is very optimal to regulate the nervous system in a quick way. So
And increase heart rate variability as well.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So like I think Prince, Purple Rain is some maybe quite close to that. You can use that, and also there is a nice song by World Party. But I have a few other on my playlist, on About Yoga's playlist. They are open, so you can find them there. So that is very nice, I think. But otherwise, it's different when you guide yoga because I don't. At least I don't want the lyrics to take mindfulness from the participants. So I search for a lot of music that is quite instrumental, and not taking too much place. So sometimes it's a bit more neutral music probably than a breathwork session.
Well, it's the same for me, actually. I rarely have songs with music in them because I know that you begin listening to. Sometimes I have the songs in different languages, but that's also a bit because then you try to, even though you don't understand it, you listen to it. But sometimes I use songs with powerful messages.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
Which has I built for these type of situations. It can be a poem, or we can use
Alan Watts,
something like that. Exactly.
Harris,
There's some really cool remixes as well, where they're built in, and also like sometimes the sound of Matthew McConaughey, like sharing, and rarely. Wow, there's there's much to cover there, and also something that just came to my mind before leaving this subject behind us is I remember listening to this 5.5 seconds in and 5.5 seconds out. I'm personally very I think there would be a resonance or a renaissance in religion at some point relatively soon.
I totally agree.
Yeah, people are slowly beginning to look at what religion, and also especially many of the traditional religions, Christianity, early Christianity, and understanding that, wow, they had a lot of things figured out, or there's a lot of things there. It seems to have been basically the knowledge of the truth, and then it through the years been corrupted. But I believe that and it's something I learned when listening to, I think, another podcast, was around this 5.5 seconds in, 5.5 seconds out. Many of the psalms that you read in Christianity are based or built around this 5.5 seconds in and 5.5 seconds out. So the way you say them is designed for you to get 5.5 seconds in,
the meter in the in the poem. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, probably. Yes.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And just all of this knowledge that they somehow possessed back thousands of years ago is I find that
but it was also about to memorize.
Exactly.
You didn't have the scriptures as well, and the Buddhist scriptures are based on that. That they're verbally memorized, and also how to say. That's how you taught it. You didn't gave away the scripture to the student. You told them, and they had to memorize.
Built
oral traditions. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you for this opening question. And like I said before we got started here, sometimes what does being a man mean to you take us on a short answer. Sometimes it takes us on a spin out to philosophical journeys. And seeing that we're moving forward in the episode, I'd love to connect around your book. I mean, just reading the title makes me relaxed. The Art of Stillness in a Noisy World.
Yeah.
And I'd love for you to just share a bit about that, and possibly also, if you feel that that's something that will add to the story, maybe, talk a bit about your journey. How did you arrive to writing this book?
This is my second book, and I wrote my first book 2017, and it's called Viloläge, or Rest Stop, I think we can translate it to. And it was merely about my personal story, And at that time, I had a quite rough, difficult time in my life because of my second daughter's rare condition. We were kind of hospitalized for about 10 years, something like that. So the red thread in that book is how meditation could help me to cope with that situation and come out alive on the other side. And it was, apart from that, it was very much a book with instructions for a beginner in mindfulness. This is how you meditate, and here is a meditation, and here is an instruction, here is a new meditation, and so on. So, and then I met my new publisher, Bonnier, and we discussed what kind of book are we going to write. And I was at that time, I was kind of tired about mindfulness as a word. I thought it was like everywhere in good and less good situations in the society. So I wanted to more explore the concept of stillness and silence, how we can find that, because in a world that is totally the opposite. So what entrances can we find in that fast-paced world? And my suggestions when I started to write in the synopsis for the book was to write about the most obvious things like nature and finding breathing spaces in everyday life and so on. But when I started to write the book and I talked to a lot of people, I realized that this concept of stillness is quite wide, and it also depends on where we come from. So it became like a book with many different essays about how we can explore stillness. And for example, for me it was meditation, and I give examples, some different techniques that help me throughout life. But for another people, it's maybe listening to the weather forecast. So it's weather forecast is very interesting. I think it's broadcasted 5 times a day in the Swedish public radio, and it's telling people how much wind and how much storm and rain and different weather qualities there is on very remote places. Probably we will never visit them, like Sydutsira or Harstena. I don't even know where it is. But at least I know that Sydutsira have the population of 200 people. And I don't think anybody listening to the Swedish radio have any plans to navigate out there with a boat. So I started to get interested in those places where people find stillness, because research shows that they wanted to remove that from the Swedish government radio, but people were very upset because they use this for calming down and falling asleep. And they also explained it as it was like a fidget spinner for them to listen to those different weather forecasts. And of course, you can listen to anything like music just to slow down. But when they ask them why they like them so much, many of them answered that it's information that doesn't request anything back from me. Because I think that, at least for me, I think that's a big stress factor in life. Everything wants something back. If I open social media, it requests comments or likes or my opinions, many times about things I don't have a clue about. And if we watch a movie on Netflix, directly after we will be offered how to say, that you likely also want to see. And so there's always something that also that how to say,
Ask something for
in
return.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So here it was totally different. So even listening to storm out in Hanebukten can give a human being stillness.
Mm.
So that I found very interesting. And also in terms of nature, I talked to a Finnish artist that did a lot of research about stillness, and she couldn't find any patterns or any specific behaviors that people find it more still out in nature. It depends on where you come from. Because like me, that is grown up in the countryside with a lot of conventions, I felt a lot of stillness when I arrived to Stockholm, in a big city, and I could be together with people that have the same interests as me. That gave me a stillness from within. And talking about silence, nature is, of course, it's a nice sounds that we consider as silence, but it's not silent. There's a lot of noise in the nature. So it's a lot of essays about those kind of things. But at the end of the day, I hope I can offer a door into stillness for the reader, and instead of have a lot of instructions in the book, I wanted the reading itself to be like a meditation. So I wrote a lot of poetry when I was younger, so I actually went back to that style, and it comes very natural for me. So I could write the book quite quick, actually, but it was a very natural way for me to write like that.
Mm. Thank you for that. Listening to you is like listening to like a musing or something. It's like hypnotic.
Oh, that's good. I think my English is too bad.
No. It's something with your frequency. So what I hear you share here is really that stillness is broad concept.
Yes.
There are many ways of finding stillness, and there's obviously the typical, or where you would where one can first look at, which is sit in stillness, meditation, being still and quiet. Then you add here and you broaden the picture, really, because stillness can mean a lot of things. Stillness can be listening to the sounds of nature, listening to a weather forecast. Stillness can be, and always what happened to me also was, you can find stillness in movement.
Absolutely.
Like I remember I started a journey with Tai Chi that I know I will continue. But I started taking a first, ground course in that, and I loved it because I noticed that upon doing it, at least there are many ways of doing Tai Chi, but the one that I did was you do basically 108 movements, and you do them just over and over and over and over again, even though it takes 6 months to arrive at the end of the 108 movements. So it's a long journey. And then you just go back and work with perfecting. And in that process, I noticed after a while, it's like, there's stillness in movement. There's a way to move and being still.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
I write about that actually as well. When I first came to yoga class, actually, I felt exactly like that. And it is very beautiful when it happens. It's for me, it happened in a warrior position. I felt like I was flying or something. It was, but again, that is, when the breath, the movement, and the mindfulness, they glue together, I think you feel that feeling of wholeness. And you feel what they say in yoga chitta vritti nirodha, they say. When the nirodha, when you restrain the mind fluctuations, yoga is happening. So I think that is actually what's happening. You are so focused, one-pointed focus for what you're doing in Tai Chi or yoga. So you feel that wholeness. That's very nice.
Yeah, and something that comes to me now that I'd love for you to elaborate on is, I mean, now we talk about the broadness of stillness, but there's also like the vertical dimension of stillness. Remember, upon reading about stillness connected to Tai Chi, came upon this quote that says the mystics talk about 7 layers of stillness. The final layer is death, and the first layer is I guess the kind of stillness where you just sit down in meditation, or like they talked about this journey through stillness. And it caught my attention. It's been on my mind since then. What happens in you when you hear about that? Is that something that your book also covers? Like the
not on that specific level. I don't do, but I'm very interested in that, and I quite recently I can recommend that. It's on Utbildningsradion UR. It's a program called Meditation to Death. Or meditation in i döden, and it's about a specific condition in Tibetan Buddhism called tuktam. And when people they are so skilled in meditation, so death is, they are in a meditation posture when actually death is coming. But what they can see, and they show in this program, is that what normally happens when you die is not happening with those people. So what do you say? Disintegration, probably. It's very delayed. So they are studying like a person in this program that's been dead for about 12, 13 days, and there is no smell, and there is no signs in the skin that the person is dead. So their thesis, and Dalai Lama is so open-minded, so he said, I can't explain it, but please tell me. You have all your tools in your Western science. So study this phenomena, and probably it can be something like an evidence that the mind lives longer than we actually thought. Because in the Western medicine, when you don't breathe, the heart stopped, you are clinically dead. But here, the Tibetan Buddhists, what they are after is that there is, that's why I thought about it, there is a deeper level of stillness or mind that we can't measure with our tools. But it's quite amazing, and it's also a bit shocking when I watched it, because they film a guy, a monk, and he's been dead for many days, but he still sits totally straight up. Nothing is happening with the body, and that's he looks totally alive. But it's done by Western producers with Western scientists. So the layers of the mind, of the stillness of the mind, is deep. That's for sure. That's for sure. I can really recommend that program. Yeah.
That's going to be something I'm deep diving in, definitely. And I think also my steal part of the title for this episode as well. I think it's going to make for a good clickbait.
Meditation to death.
Exactly, meditation to death. It sounds like something that a lot of listeners will find.
I can do like a Vajra mudra as well, like meditation to death.
Oh, beautiful. And okay, so I understand then that your book is really, really there about different journeys and different paths into learning about stillness. And clearly now through this further exploration, we know that this is a vast subject and perhaps something we don't.
And also the take is that if you never experience stillness in your life, you won't hear that inner voice of yours whisper where you should navigate in life. It will be more like a guessing game, or you will feel like if you happen to arrive at the bad destination, you will feel like a victim, and if you arrive at the good destination, you will feel lucky, or I don't know how you explain it. But this stillness is more about listening inwards, learning to listen inwards to this whispering voice where you should navigate, where you find meaning in your life. And I think there is this very nice quote a friend of mine said the other day. I think it was the poet Bodil Malmsteen. They asked her, how would you come up with all those poems? And she said something like they come to me occasionally, but when they come, you have to be there. And I think that relates very, very nicely to meditation and finding meaning in your life, because when this inner voice of yours whispering where you should navigate in life, what is your role, what is your path? When that voice is whispering, you should be there. If you're not there, you won't hear it. And maybe it's too late. And I will definitely be there. That's for sure. I won't miss that moment.
Oh, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for it. It takes me to a memory actually around when you talked about. It comes to me like the poem. I had a brief moment in my life for about 2 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, just after I've been diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah.
And during my time there, I wrote about my journey through a blog. And I shared this blog openly with people. And I remember maybe 3 or 4 or 5 days into the cancer journey, I had a few mystical experiences myself. So I woke up one night I was awake, and I saw just a cross, like a burning cross in front of my bed, like a Christian, or not only Christian. I mean, it's one of the most holy symbols there is. And another night I woke up and I saw a nun that was standing by my bed and crying. And those two, I knew. I mean, obviously I cannot explain which state I was in, but I knew that I was awake because I sat up.
And it wasn't any iconography that you were related to.
No. It just came to me, and I sat up and I watched those symbols. And then shortly after, my writing of my blog began to write itself. I was only putting my hands on the keyboard of the laptop that I had, and words just came out, and I wrote in poem, basically. It was rhyming. So I wrote for many. I wrote once a day, and it just came out through me. It was pouring out of me, and I at some point I began to become conscious of what I was writing too much, because I was in such a shock in the beginning. I was also on a lot of medication, and much of the medication was we don't know the effect of the medication, but it might have produced this state of my being that also allowed me to enter this flow. But at some point I became more conscious, and I began to take more control over what I wrote. And immediately, or shortly after, I just lost it. I couldn't come back to it.
I can relate. Yeah.
Yeah. But I had those for like, and still, and I come back to writing, looking at that blog, and I can see those poems that I wrote there. It felt there was one of the most exciting experiences I've ever had.
It was like through what you call stream of consciousness, inner monologue. They describe it like that's very beautiful. It happened for me a few times as well. Actually, when I studied contemporary literature at university, we did some exercises there. There is some brilliant example of this in James Joyce's Ulysses, I think. It's like the 51st pages is written in like a stream of consciousness or something like that. And when it happens, it's very nice. And it's so, just like you describe, it's so obvious when you feel, now the subject is there and judging again. Is this good? Is it bad? Or now it's not smart enough, and like that. And you feel like you again entered the small I, so to speak. Can you relate?
I can relate.
Yeah.
There was one of
the other state is so beautiful and wide and without limits and.
Without limits, scary, also not scary, but overwhelming. And you don't, it's like something else is taking control. And I also remember immediately once I began to shift, there was a woman who contacted me. I mean, I think the blog at the time was probably read about 10, 20, 30,000 people. So it was a relatively large following connected to it, especially around the beginning, which was so dramatic. I didn't know if I was going to survive or not. It turned into a thing there for some time. And a woman contacted me. She was from Estonia, I think. She seemed very intuitive and very, too simplified, very connected. And seemed to have lots of wisdom. And she contacted me and asked me why I changed my writing. And
interesting.
And at first I didn't want to, I was like, I haven't changed my writing. And she says, well, you've changed the way you write. And I said, well, it's because the way I write doesn't give any likes, basically, or the way the old way, because I noticed the engagement, it was a bit more, it was too complicated for it felt, and I noticed the like machine going downwards because what the people liked was drama. So I started sharing more about the drama of going through cancer. But the previous writing was more philosophical. I mean, what's the meaning of life, basically? And I noticed I was dropping in engagement, and I told her they don't like what I'm writing, and she's like, well, just keep writing the old way because your audience will come to you. Just keep writing that truth. And don't follow the likes and engagement. But I wasn't strong at the time enough to listen to her. She just appeared out of nowhere. So I kept writing in my own the mental way. And I at some point I lost interest. Like a couple of months down the line, I just stopped sharing.
Oh, that's interesting to hear. And I can I mean, it's hard to be strong in those cases when you feel this is, but also maybe it's very, very private. So maybe that's also why you hesitated, that should I share this? Because if you share something that deep, and also it happens that people decrease their likes, it feels like maybe you don't want to share. It's a natural thing. I think that you should be very careful with those things that is very, very important to you. I know in some yoga scriptures, I think it's a Hatha Yoga Pradipika, that talks about that you should be very careful who you share your inner experience in the world of yoga with, because I think out there, just that happens to you, just with how to say, the absence of likes, is that people always want to be smart and how to say, cut you down. So some things you have to hold very close to you. and don't overshare. I think that is the most difficult balance in the times we live. I think quite a lot about that. What I want to share and not want to share, and how you should share it. Yeah. Mm. But you want to be in the flow. That's really something. That's really something. I think that's what we all strive for, like you experience there, to be in the flow when the small subjective I doesn't judge all the time. Mm.
Definitely, and I think now having matured in life, because I used to think about it as on off, switching on, switching off. Now I see it more as a relative scale. I notice when I'm building companies or in my business experiences now, I notice many elements of flow in there, usually connected or intertwined with my mind. And it's the ego self axis where, you know, how much am I connected to my ego? How much am I connected to my higher self? And the play between two of them. Yeah. And I'm not sure whether a person is intended to constantly like 100% open. I mean, whether that is the way to live,
no.
whether that's just a way, that's something that you get during brief moments of times in your life, but rather that you have elements of it always. You're always connected to it to some degree. And that's the life experience.
Yes.
You know, holding your eye, your separation, like your separate entity, which is you here on earth, at the same time feeling connection to everything and balancing and navigating that. I see as really the real life challenge, you know.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah.
And striving for 100% of that complete openness is probably it can be a dangerous trap to set as a, you know, parameter for, oh, I'm successful now in life because I'm so open.
For temporary happiness, I think works very good, but for genuine happiness, probably not. Because it's how do you say, it's I lost the word now. It's dependent on something outside you. And things that are dependent on things outside you can only lead to temporary happiness, I think, because they will change. It will change all the time, and you will get disappointed about that change because you expect something else, probably. I think so. So if you're looking for genuine happiness, I think what you explained first is a better way to go.
The balancing of the two, and constantly being the captain of the ship, which is everything that you is, or you are.
Yes, and you know that you can. I share this. I write about this, but whatever people think about it or how they scale it won't affect you. That most inner place in you, it can't change that. But if you put that on stake, would be very risky, I think. And probably it will lead to disappointment.
Yeah.
I think so, at least.
What comes up in me is a memory of I remember early in when I studied some transcendental meditation at one point. And
you do it now? No, before.
No, yeah.
I never tried that, actually.
You haven't?
Never.
No,
never.
Well, it's a framework where you use mantra.
Yeah,
you get one. Yeah, exactly.
20 minutes
for the listeners, exactly.
Like that, yeah.
For the listeners to know, you get handed a mantra, and that's what you do. It's mantra meditation, basically.
Yeah.
Over and over and over again. 20 minutes in the morning or 20 minutes in the afternoon, and that's it. And,
is a mantra in Sanskrit or?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I remember sharing this with another person who said, "Ooh, wow, that brings me back. I remember that actually caused a lot of damage for me. Because when the first time I did transcendental meditation, we had this course. There's this very strict structure where you get introduced to your mantra, and you need to practice for a weekend retreat or something, a week maybe. And he said I had my most profound experience I've ever had. I came to a place where I could see through walls. For a moment, I looked through my hand and I saw through it, and then I spent and that was the deepest experience I've ever had in life. And it was like that for 10 minutes or something, 20 minutes, and then I came back and I spoke to my teacher about this, and I thought everybody had this because he was relatively young, and then he spent 9 years chasing the same experience again.
Oh no.
Because his teacher was just like, well, it sounds like you've had I'm not sure how he just said, well, that's just part of the experience. Maybe didn't realize how deep the experience was. And he's chased the same experience, and he said it took me 9 years, and then I got back one more time to the same experience, and then I just kept chasing that experience. So ultimately I had to step away from it because I realized I was hooked to something that maybe wasn't.
Yeah.
It had such a beginner's luck.
Yes.
And it
a lot of beginner's luck.
Yeah, and it ruined me, he said. Speaking of chasing those.
Yeah, that's a very good example. And I think it reminds me of have you read the Roald Dahl, Amazing Story of Henry Sugar?
No,
it's amazing, amazing short story that is like exactly about this actually. But he teach from an Indian yogi how to watch through things. Like we call it Siddhi, magician skills. But he uses it in a completely different way because it became a card hazard. So he win the, how do you say, poker when he totally win all the money wherever he goes until somebody is seeing him through that this is some kind of trick, yogic trick. It's an amazing story. So, but I can totally, I can relate to that actually, because I was in quite bad physical shape when I started yoga, and I had this amazing out-of-body experience in Shavasana. Quite plain relaxation, wasn't probably any special at all, but for me it was a very nice feeling to be that relaxed and feel that so secure. So I also like searched for that the first months in my yoga practice. I searched for that same experience until I let go of it. So I think that is also again back to what we talked about. When you have expectation, a wrong view on things, you expect one thing to be static or be exactly like it is, but the thing never said it is like that. So it's in your mind that you expect. They call it in avidya in yogic philosophy. It means like vidya is knowledge and I is a negation, to don't have a knowledge how things exist in their true nature. So if we see an example like life to be forever, it is an avidya. We don't understand that life changes all the time, and it will lead us to an end where we will die. But so to see that very clearly with clear eyes and to embrace that circumstance is vidya. And that will be like a wake-up call for you that life is now. But if you become avidic in your view, so to speak, you will kind of have expectations on life that it never gave any such promises to you. Life never said something like that. It never showed something like that. So it's just one example. And I think being in a relationship in the same thing. So suppose that we are friends on daily basis, and I want this Fabian right here, right now. I want you to be like this. It's also avidya. You never said that you're going to be exactly like this. You are a tenant of different things. So to understand vidya, to embrace that, is to understand that you will evolve, you will change. and I have to embrace that circumstance to remain your friend. Otherwise, it will be very awkward. So I think it's to be more flexible, psychological flexible in life than this guy. And I mean, it's really, I'm going to say 9 years, 6 years to feel the same
he chased
experience.
kept chasing
really,
it. But I was surprised that he came back to it.
That's really tapas. That's really strength to go back and wait for it. But still, avidya.
Avidya, very much so. And
very much avidya.
Might also explain why the growing popularity. I mean, there are ways that you can shortcut the journey towards those sort of very mysterious or mystical experiences, which is plant medicine, right? Which is why there is a rising popularity of all of those, you know, DMT and 5-MeO DMT when you smoke and you basically experience death for 20, 25, 30 minutes, and all of the other plant medicine journeys. And they're going to have another person coming on later in the show to talk about psychedelics properly, like going deep into it and see how that can experience that. What I read now recently actually is that now Karolinska is going to begin actually applying psilocybin treatment in hospice to patients that are approaching the physical death. So, but that's obviously this is not something we're going to go into right now to talk about because it's such a big subject.
Yeah, but I'm very curious about that, and I always listen with an open mind when I hear about it. But I never tried myself actually, and actually, believe me or not, I have never tried any drugs actually at all. I've been back and forth to Nepal many times, and you can find cannabis growing outside the hotel window, but I never got attracted to it. And sometimes I think, why didn't I try? But I think maybe because I think my mind been so open, and I had so many big experience in my meditation and in the tantric tradition. So maybe that's why. But I think it's very interesting what is happening now. And I have a very close friend actually on Karolinska who is doing a lot about research about this. And she tells me a lot of very interesting stories.
Fascinating to see how the future will evolve, and beginning to separate plant medicine from conventional drugs. It's going to be a big step forward, I think, and seeing how those can be implemented in different ways. They are there. They have for many amazing effects, and should be something at least more researched and understood by hopefully conventional healthcare further down the line.
Definitely. And here we can really rely on our Western scientists, exactly like mindfulness, how it evolved. I mean, it's during the 70s, this for sure, you know, but like they did there, it was Buddhists, but they were also doctors as their profession. And they had to bend over backwards and cut out from the cultural tradition, the techniques itself, and then put them into the laboratories and see how does this work on stress solely? How does this work on psoriasis solely? How does this work on how you relate to pain if you have cancer, for example? And then the rest is history. But that's the same thing. You have to cut it out from and here we have to cut it out from maybe a more another kind of context where many people also tries it just to have the dope experience.
Yeah.
Because that's very interesting. I mean, what is spirituality? What is spirituality, and what is more like a dope experience? And that is interesting times we live in, where we can mix those things up, and we can become this guy who search for the same experience year after year, meditating. And here we can maybe we want to maximize the experience. If I do one more trip, I heard those examples, and that's where I come less interested in it. When you want to more maximize and explore more and more and more and more. But what it comes down to is always, for me, how can you contribute in the society? Will there be any wisdom? Will there be any compassion? Will there be, what will remain? What will decrease suffering in the society?
Yeah, that's ultimately tying yourself and your being connect to a higher cause and serving something larger than yourself.
Yes.
Which is, I would say, a way to also bind this episode back to at least how many, and not that it's exclusive, definitely not exclusive for men, but it's something that a lot of people in this episode talk about. It's what it means to be a man, to serve something larger than yourself. I think you can also say that what it means to be a human is ultimately, what's the purpose of being a human is serving something larger constantly.
Absolutely.
Tying more and more your actions, whilst at the same time not surrendering your own needs, sacrificing yourself for the greater good, but just finding that beautiful balance always, you know, and see, you know, what is the motivation. Just assess without judging yourself what motivates my actions. Why do I run this company, really? And again, seeing that it's never black or white. It's like there's usually a bit of both in everything, right?
Yeah, it's never black or white.
Yeah,
it's always this tenet, and the balance is key.
Yeah,
definitely. Also, talking about being a man, is this tantric image of the female and the male goes together completely, and when they are in how to say equal weight, then there is a balance. The potential is there. But if there is unbalance, it will come out in different ways. Not that will create more suffering than less. But balance is key. But it's also, I mean, whatever we are doing in this, what we're talking about is very difficult. It's very, very difficult. And that's why we need to help each other, support each other, and think, how to say, being friendly, not competitive, and so on. That's very important, I think.
fully. Well, Magnus, I sense that we're nearing a conclusion. Of the episode. I have really enjoyed talking to you. I enjoyed how we got started. Yeah, in the realm of women yoga, men breathwork, and how we then transcended further or into. I really enjoyed our conversation about stillness and mystical experiences, and also there how it shifted into being in the flow, what that means, and here in the end about chasing some elusive experience you once had can be a slippery slope for your own mental health and well-being, or overall health and well-being.
Yes,
because it's never meant to ever happen again, possibly because everything is always changing.
Yes, everything is always changing.
Yeah.
So what is your meaning in life?
My meaning overall in life?
Yes. What is your Northern Star? What is your GPS at this moment?
At the moment, I've aligned myself more and more to following. I'm working a lot with trying to follow an inner knowing, connecting an inner knowing inside of myself, learning to trust. So I would say counter opposite of what you would, how would you frame your typical man or masculine quality, where you have a long vision and long perspective. I have that as well, but I'm more also at the moment learning to listen to my intuition a lot and trusting the movement a lot more, not getting too stuck into a controlled setting. And as I notice how my life has gotten more and more exciting as well as I do that. At the moment, I notice very many opportunities. There's a sense of flow and ease in my life, exciting challenges. I mean, always challenging, but I dance with the challenges more than let them, consume me. On an overall level, what I'm hoping for and I feel that I'm here to do is to help shape a way of living and I'd say a new way of, or maybe an old way of being, where we can look at many of the current systems of today and the structures, look at what has been good in those structures, and maybe also reforming some of them. And I believe many will need to go and be reinstalled with new systems. So I hope that I can be a force for building or constant, like evolving the way we live. And play my part in that, being a piece in that puzzle.
Very beautiful experience. Explained. Very beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What is yours?
Oh, what is mine? Yes. I think a friend of mine asked me the other day, and I very spontaneously replied. I feel like earlier in life, I've been struggling quite a lot, actually. I've been struggling with my ADHD. I've been struggling with I found Buddhism and meditation very early age. So on a private level and personal level, I found great usage of the practices and really supported me all through my life. But I struggled with what I'm going to do in the future. What kind of job should I have? And how can I earn my salary? And things like that. And I was a music producer for a long time. But when I look back, I really enjoyed and I was okay. But it was always some kind of struggle involved to be as good as the others, or doing right or wrong. So many things. I was hard to find my natural role. But now I feel like I'm exactly at the right place. And that's very beautiful feeling, because everything kind of boiled down to this moment. When I was 23 and I wrote a thesis on the Contemporary Literature Institution of in Lund, my third season thesis about Tibetan poet Milarepa and his poems. And I remember the teacher wasn't very happy. He wanted me to write about Gunnar Ekelöf or Wilhelm Ekelund, some more common poet. But I was very strong in that I wanted to do that. And then that led me over to study Tibetan language and Sanskrit language in the Stockholm University, which I remember when I told my parents I'm going to study Sanskrit in Stockholm University. They said, what? At least we thought that you could become like teacher or something like that. But what can this lead to? Nothing. Why should you do that? 3 years of studying those foreign languages. But now it boils down to this is the language of yoga. It's the language of meditation. So now I can find great usage of this. And I think that is when life is very beautiful. Things that you do that seems not relevant at all. And then many years later, it feels like, yes, of course. That's why I walked that path that appeared awkward at that moment. So now I feel I don't want to do anything else in life that I'm doing right now, actually. So I want to practice, because that always comes first for me. I want to practice my daily yoga meditation and I want to share from that place. And I think since this was given to me at an early age, I think it comes natural for me, and I might be a right person to do that job. So I want to share that. How to say, givmilt, and with no strings attached, and I think deeply, I think that can contribute to a society that is more balanced, like we talked about before, and less stressed, and less negative self-beliefs, less anxiety. And also, I think on a bigger level, I think it can really give, as it gives me, myself, peace within. If I start with me, that can also help others to find peace within. And I don't know where else it can start, peace in the world, than if you start with yourself. And I always thought, when I read about Dalai Lama when I was a teenager, he always said this: meditation for me is peace work. And I felt, well, yes, you will find stillness. But now I understand that.
Yeah.
You have to start with yourself. And this is I would say we need more meditation teachers. This really works. And breathwork teachers, meditation teachers, yoga teachers. This is a work that will help the society. So that is the meaning in my life.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And your sharing opened up so many doors that I want to go further into and deep dive. But I'm just going to say thank you.
Thank you.
For giving that last piece, and ultimately how potent it is to do work on yourself.
Yes.
There. And peace work. Yeah. I love that.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Magnus.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you.